The massive human fleet moved through space like a river of steel and light. Admiral Thorne stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching as the last transport ships joined the formation. Hundreds of vessels, from small fighters to giant colony ships, gathered for humanity's final departure from Galactic Council space. "All ships report ready." "Admiral," said the communications officer. Thorne nodded. After 50 years of arguments, warnings, and finally resignation, humanity was leaving. "Begin departure sequence. Take us home." Across the galaxy, on the Council's central world, Ambassador Ellis walked through the grand halls of the Council chamber one last time. The circular room buzzed with angry voices and worried whispers. Representatives from over 200 alien species debated the human departure. High Counselor Vex, a tall reptilian with emerald scales, called the session to order. "The humans have made their decision. They refuse to reconsider." Ellis stepped forward, her gray hair and lined face showing the years of frustration. "We came to you 20 years ago with evidence of the threat. We showed you the signals from the void between galaxies. We presented the ancient warnings found on 12 different worlds. You dismissed them all." "Unverified data and superstitious markings," said Counselor Vex, waving a clawed hand. "Not enough to justify the military buildup you demanded." Ellis placed a small device on the central table. "This is our final message to the Council. When the darkness comes, remember who warned you." She turned and walked away, ignoring the shouting behind her. In orbit above, the last human diplomatic vessel prepared to join the Exodus. Back in deep space, Admiral Thorne watched the fleet's progress on the main screen. His second-in-command, Captain Reeves, approached with a datapad. "Sir, we've received confirmation. The last embassy has closed. All human citizens are either with the fleet or already in our territory." Thorne took a deep breath. "Activate the boundary beacons. From this point forward, all Council vessels entering human space will be turned back." "Do you think they'll respect the boundary?" asked Reeves. "They will," said Thorne. "They think we're fools running from shadows. They'll be glad to see us go." On the Council world, the debate continued for days after the humans left. Some members argued that humanity's departure was a blessing. Humans had always been unpredictable, aggressive, and difficult to control. Others worried about the loss of human innovation and their strong military presence, which had helped maintain peace in several troubled sectors. "Good riddance," said Governor Pax of the Trill Confederation. "Always making demands, always questioning our decisions. Let them hide in their corner of the galaxy." Counselor Limar, one of the few who had supported the humans, shook her head. "You all forget too quickly. When the Krell invaded 10 years ago, whose fleets arrived first? When the plague swept through the Orion Arm, whose scientists found the cure? Past contributions don't give them the right to demand special treatment," said Vex. "They wanted resources redirected to defend against a threat that may not even exist." 3 months after the human departure, strange reports began coming in from the outer regions of Council space. A mining outpost near the galactic rim went silent. When investigators arrived, they found the station intact but empty, with no signs of violence or evacuation. A week later, a science vessel reported unusual energy readings before all communication stopped. A patrol sent to investigate found only debris. On the edge of Council territory, the small colony world of Tanis sent a garbled distress call that cut off mid-transmission. The Council dispatched a response team led by Commander Drell. "Approach with caution," Drell told his crew as their ship entered the Tanis system. "We don't know what happened down there." The planet looked peaceful from orbit, its blue-green surface showing no signs of disaster. But when they landed near the main settlement, they found a ghost town. 5,000 colonists had vanished. Food remained on tables. Vehicles sat abandoned in streets. It was as if everyone had simply stepped away from their lives at the same moment. In the colony's communications center, a technician made a chilling discovery. "Commander, I found something in the sensor logs." The records showed a massive object that had appeared suddenly in orbit, defying all known laws of physics. It had remained for less than an hour before vanishing again. When the investigation team returned with their report, an emergency council session was called. High Counselor Vex struggled to maintain order as frightened representatives demanded answers and protection. "We have no evidence connecting these incidents," Vex insisted. "It could be a new natural phenomenon or perhaps raiders with cloaking technology." "The humans knew," said Counselor Limar quietly, but her voice carried through the chamber. "This is what they tried to warn us about. Speculation, snapped Vex. We will increase patrols in the affected sectors and continue investigating. There is no need for panic. But 6 months after the human departure, the situation worsened. 3 more colonies went silent. 2 Council patrol fleets disappeared. Strange energy signatures were detected throughout Council space, always briefly and never in the same location twice. Most disturbing of all, deep space monitoring stations picked up an unusual pattern. The anomalies seemed to be avoiding one region of space entirely, the new human territory. Admiral Jarek of the Council Defense Force presented his findings to the High Council. Whatever this is, it's deliberately staying away from human space. That cannot be a coincidence. Vex, who had dismissed the human warnings for years, now faced a chamber full of frightened representatives. What are you suggesting, Admiral? I'm suggesting we were wrong, said Jarek. The humans knew something was coming. They tried to tell us and we didn't listen. Now they've protected themselves and we're vulnerable. The Council voted to send a diplomatic mission to the human boundary, requesting information and assistance. But when the envoys arrived at the border marked by the warning beacons, they received only an automated message. The humans have withdrawn from Council affairs. All communication requests are denied. 8 months after the Exodus disaster struck, a massive unknown vessel appeared near Bastion, one of the Council's major military bases. Before the defense fleet could respond, the station and 3 planets in the system were simply gone, not destroyed but removed from existence, leaving only empty space where they had been. The Council finally declared a galaxy-wide emergency. Fear spread through the 1,000 worlds of their territory. Some planets began their own evacuations, not knowing where to go but desperate to escape the mysterious threat. In a secure bunker beneath the Council chamber, Vex met with the highest military and scientific leaders. We need to contact the humans. Whatever the cost, whatever we must promise them, we need their help. Admiral Jarek shook his head. We've tried every channel. They're not responding. Then we need to send someone they might listen to, said Vex, turning to Counselor Lamar. You supported them. You have human friends. Will you go to them? Before Lamar could answer, the bunker's communication system activated. A message was being broadcast on all frequencies throughout Council space. The screens showed only darkness at first, then resolved into the image of Ambassador Ellis. People of the Galactic Council, she said, her face solemn. By now you have encountered what we tried to warn you about. We called it the Void. Ancient records on Earth and other worlds told of its coming. We found evidence of its previous visits to our galaxy. Millions of years apart, we knew it would return in our lifetime. The Council leaders watched in silence as Ellis continued. We left because you gave us no choice. We needed to prepare and you blocked us at every turn. But we have not forgotten our friends among the stars. Ellis leaned forward. The Void has awakened. It feeds on intelligent life and the energy of civilization. It cannot be reasoned with or understood by our minds, but it can be fought. To those who supported us and believed our warnings, we offer sanctuary. Coordinates are attached to this message, leading to safe passages through our defensive perimeter. To the Council leadership who mocked and dismissed us, we say only this. The darkness we warned you about has come. What happens next will depend on whether you can set aside your pride and ask properly for our help. The message ended, leaving the Council leaders staring at each other in shock and growing hope. On his flagship, now stationed at the edge of human space, Admiral Thorne watched the sensor readings with grim satisfaction. The Void entities were appearing with increasing frequency in Council territory but carefully avoiding the human boundary. They've received the message, reported Captain Reeves. The first refugee ships are approaching our safe corridor. Thorne nodded. Guide them through. And prepare the fleet. The Council will be calling for help soon, whether they want to or not. Will we answer? Asked Reeves. Thorne looked at the star map where red markers showed the spreading influence of the Void. We're humans. We'll help because that's what we do. But this time, we'll do it our way. The first refugee vessels crossed into human space where they found not just safety but a civilization transformed. In the years since leaving the Council, humanity had built something new. A civilization ready for war against the darkness between the stars. Captain Drake stood on the bridge of the Council security vessel, Guardian, staring at the main view screen with growing unease. The planet below, New Horizon, had gone silent 12 hours ago. It was the 5th colony to lose contact in the last 2 weeks. No response to our signals. Captain, reported Communications Officer Jax. No emergency beacons, no automated systems, nothing. Drake turned to Science Officer Lyra, whose feathered head was bent over the sensor console. "What are you seeing down there?" "Life signs," said Lyra, her voice tight with confusion. "Thousands of them clustered in the main settlement. But they're wrong somehow. The patterns don't match any known species." "The colony had 40,000 people," said Drake. "Where are they?" "Unknown." Lyra adjusted the sensors. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual structures that weren't in the colony plans. They appear to have grown from the ground." Drake made his decision. "Prepare a landing party. Full protective gear and heavy weapons. I want to know what happened down there." As the security team prepared for descent, emergency messages flooded in from across Council space. 3 patrol fleets had encountered unknown vessels near the Vega sector. A research station orbiting a neutron star had vanished. Most alarming of all, the agricultural world of Proxima 2, home to 500 million Council citizens, had gone completely dark. The landing party found New Horizons' main settlement intact, but transformed. Strange metallic growths covered many buildings, pulsing with an inner light. The streets were empty, but the team discovered odd tracks in the dirt, neither footprints nor vehicle marks, but long, sinuous trails as if something massive had slithered through. "Captain," called Security Chief Voss, "you need to see this." In the colony's central plaza, a tall structure had emerged from the ground. It resembled a tower made of black glass, twisting upward nearly 100 meters. At its base, embedded in the material, were objects that sent chills through the hardened security team. Personal belongings of the colonists, watches, jewelry, identification cards, all partially absorbed into the strange substance. "Get samples," ordered Drake. "And find me a survivor, anyone who can tell us what happened here." They found no survivors, but in the colony's data center, they discovered security footage from when the attack began. The images showed the sky darkening as something massive moved overhead. Then the ground erupted, black tendrils shooting upward, wrapping around buildings and people alike. The colonists didn't even have time to scream before they were pulled into the emerging structures. The final frame showed a strange symbol appearing. In the sky, a spiral of dark energy that seemed to draw in light from around it. When Drake's team returned to their ship with the footage and samples, they found a priority message waiting from Council headquarters. All exploration and security vessels were being recalled to defend the core worlds. The Council had officially declared war against an enemy they couldn't identify or understand. On the Council capital world, Governor Mox addressed the emergency session. His insectoid form towered over the podium as representatives from hundreds of species looked on in fear. "We face an unprecedented threat," said Mox, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "The attackers leave no survivors and no demands. They do not respond to communication. They simply appear, take what they want, and vanish." A holographic display showed the affected areas of Council space, nearly a quarter of their territory compromised in just 6 months. "Our military forces are mobilizing," continued Mox, "but initial engagements have been difficult. The enemy vessels possess technology beyond our understanding. They appear to bend space itself, making our weapons ineffective." Counselor Trill rose from her seat. "What about the human territories? Have they been attacked?" A hush fell over the chamber. Everyone had been wondering the same thing. Since the human exodus a year earlier, there had been no communication with Earth or its colonies. The boundary beacon still stood, warning Council vessels away. "We have been monitoring the situation," said Mox reluctantly. "There have been no attacks in human space. In fact, our long-range sensors indicate the enemy deliberately avoids their territory." The chamber erupted in shouting. Some representatives demanded an immediate alliance with humans. Others accused humanity of being behind the attacks, using them to force the Council into submission. "Silence," roared Mox. "We have no evidence of human involvement. What we do know is that they warned us about a threat from deep space, a warning we dismissed. If they have found a way to protect themselves, we need that knowledge." The Council voted to send a high-level diplomatic mission to human space. Led by Ambassador Dax, the mission departed with the Council's fastest ship, carrying offers of alliance, trade, and mutual defense. When they reached the boundary, they expected to be turned away like previous messengers. Instead, they received coordinates for a meeting point just inside human territory. The ship that met them there stunned the Council delegates. a massive vessel unlike any human craft they had seen before, with technology clearly more advanced than what humanity had possessed when they left the Council. Admiral Park of Earth Defense Force greeted them aboard the vessel. "Welcome, Ambassador. We've been expecting you." Dax bowed deeply. "The Council requests humanity's assistance against an enemy that threatens all life in the galaxy." "The Void," said Park calmly. "We know, we've been watching its advance." "Then you'll help us?" asked Dax, hope in his voice. Park's expression remained neutral. "That depends on what the Council is willing to offer, and what they're willing to admit." Meanwhile, on the front lines, Captain Drake's ship joined a defense fleet at Lyra's Star, a system that contained a major Council shipyard. Intelligence suggested it would be the next target. "Contact!" shouted the sensor operator. Multiple signals appearing at the edge of the system. On the view screen, space itself seemed to fold and 5 ships emerged from nowhere. They resembled no vessel Drake had ever seen. Not solid constructions, but shifting masses of dark energy shaped vaguely like predatory sea creatures from ancient Earth. "All ships, battle formation," ordered Fleet Commander Voss. "Target the lead vessel and fire when ready." The Council fleet unleashed everything they had: energy weapons, missile barrages, gravity bombs. The attacks seemed to pass through the enemy vessels without effect, or worse, were absorbed, making the dark ships grow larger. The enemy response was devastating. Beams of energy that bent like living things reached out, wrapping around Council ships and crushing them. Others simply vanished, removed from existence between one moment and the next. "We can't hurt them," realized Drake in horror. "Nothing works." As the battle turned into a massacre, Drake noticed something strange. A Council research vessel, the Explorer, was being ignored by the enemy. While ships around it were destroyed, the attackers gave it a wide berth. Drake ordered an emergency transmission. "Explorer, this is Guardian. Why aren't they attacking you?" The response came from Professor Reed, the ship's lead scientist. "We've been testing a new shield configuration based on ancient human theoretical physics. It generates a field that mimics the energy signature of human vessels." "You're posing as a human ship?" asked Drake in disbelief. "Not intentionally," said Reed. "I've been working with human scientists in secret since before they left the Council. This technology was part of what they were developing to counter what they called the Void." Drake made a snap decision. "Explorer, transmit your shield frequency to all remaining vessels immediately." As the surviving Council ships adjusted their shields, the enemy's attack pattern changed. The dark vessels pulled back, seemingly confused by the new energy signatures. It didn't stop the attack entirely, but it slowed it down enough for some Council ships to escape. The battle at Lyra's Star became known as the First Stand, the first time Council forces had managed any kind of defense against the Void, though the shipyard was lost and casualties were catastrophic. The discovery of the shield frequency gave the Council their first hope. Back on the capital world, the diplomatic mission returned from human space with news that shocked the Council. Ambassador Dax addressed the emergency session. "The humans agreed to help us, but their terms are non-negotiable," said Dax. "They require full control over all military operations against the Void. Council worlds must contribute resources as directed, and the Council must publicly acknowledge that they were wrong to dismiss the human warnings." Outrage filled the chamber. Many representatives refused to consider surrendering authority to humans. Others saw no choice. The alternative was extinction. High Counselor Vex, who had opposed humans for years, now faced the impossible decision. "What did you see in human territory, Ambassador?" "How have they protected themselves?" "They've been preparing for this war since before they left us," said Dax. "Their entire civilization has reorganized around fighting the Void. They've built defense systems on a scale I can barely describe, and they've developed weapons specifically designed to combat these entities." "How?" demanded Vex. "How could they know so much about an enemy none of us had encountered before?" Dax hesitated. "The humans claim their ancestors faced the Void once before, thousands of years ago. They found records in ancient ruins on Earth and other worlds they settled. They've been studying this enemy for generations while we ignored their warnings." General Krev watched as another world fell to the Void. From the command center orbiting Centauri Prime, he could only observe as the darkness spread across the planet below. Black tendrils reached from the ground to the sky, connecting to the massive Void ships hovering in orbit. The colony of 3 million souls would be gone within hours. Order the evacuation fleet to disengage, Krev commanded, his voice hollow with defeat. They won't reach the surface in time. His second-in-command, Major Locks, stared at the screen in horror. Sir, there are still civilians down there. And we cannot help them, said Krev. The fleet must survive to protect the remaining worlds. Those are our orders. This had become the terrible reality of the war against the Void. Strategic retreat after strategic retreat, watching helplessly as colony worlds fell. In the 3 months since the first major attacks, the Council had lost 37 worlds. Billions of lives gone without a trace. Only the human defensive technology had prevented total collapse. The shield generators they provided protected the most populated Council worlds, creating safe zones that the Void could not penetrate. But there weren't enough generators for every planet, forcing military leaders like Krev to make impossible choices about which worlds to defend and which to abandon. On the Council capital, now surrounded by the most powerful human defense system in the galaxy, Councillor Dax argued fiercely with his colleagues. We need to commit everything to the human alliance, Dax insisted, pounding the table for emphasis. Every ship, every resource, every scientist. It's our only hope. High Councillor Vex, once the most vocal critic of humanity, now seemed aged beyond his years. We have already given them control of our military. What more can we surrender? Our pride, said Dax simply. We need to acknowledge publicly that they were right all along. And we need to share everything we know about the Void, including the classified research some Council members have been conducting in secret. The chamber fell silent. Vex looked around at his fellow councillors, many of whom avoided his gaze. What secret research? He asked quietly. Dax activated a holographic display. For the past 50 years, certain Council species have been studying Void artifacts found in deep space. They kept this research hidden, even from the Council leadership. I believe this is why the humans left. They discovered this deception and realized we couldn't be trusted. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Council. Emergency sessions were held, classified files unsealed. The truth emerged piece by piece. Council scientists had found Void technology millennia ago, technology that promised unlimited energy and faster-than-light travel. Rather than destroy these dangerous relics, they had studied them, eventually incorporating aspects of the technology into Council ships. We've been using their technology, whispered Vex in horror. All these years we've been making ourselves visible to them, drawing them to us. With this new understanding, the Council formally apologized to humanity and pledged complete transparency. In response, human leaders agreed to increase their defensive commitment and share more of their anti-Void technology. In a secure research facility on one of the few remaining Council frontier worlds, Professor Reed worked alongside human scientists. The facility was surrounded by powerful shield generators, creating a bubble of safety in increasingly dangerous space. The Void entities function as a hive mind, Reed explained to the gathered military leaders. Each ship, each structure they create on captured worlds, connects to the central intelligence. They learn from every encounter, adapting to our defenses. She displayed images taken from scout drones showing transformed Council worlds. Once thriving cities now served as massive uplink structures, black towers reaching to the sky. They're not destroying our worlds, said Reed. They're converting them, using them to expand their network. The people they take, their consciousness is absorbed into the collective. General Krev studied the images with growing unease. How do we fight an enemy like this? Even with human technology, we're losing ground every day. The humans have developed a weapon, said Reed. Something they call the Severance. It disrupts the connection between Void entities and the central intelligence. They've been testing it on captured Void fragments with promising results. Why haven't they deployed it yet? Asked Krev. It has limited range, Reed replied. To be effective against the main Void fleet, they need to get close to what they believe is the command node, the largest Void entity at the center of their formation. That means breaking through their defenses. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message. A massive Void force had been detected moving toward Arcturus, one of the last major Council shipyards still in operation. If it fell, the Council would lose its ability to repair and build warships. General Krev immediately ordered all available forces to Arcturus. The human commanders contributed a battle group led by Commander Stone, whose ships carried prototype versions of the Severance weapon. The battle for Arcturus became the largest engagement of the war thus far. Over 300 Council ships and 50 human vessels faced a Void fleet twice their size. The human shields gave the Allied forces a fighting chance, but the Void had adapted, finding ways to drain the shield energy more quickly than before. Commander Stone's flagship, the Defiance, pushed through the front lines, targeting the largest Void vessel. "Activate Severance on my mark," he ordered. "All ships, provide covering fire." The weapon powered up, generating a field of energy unlike anything the Council forces had seen before. When it fired, it created not an explosion but a ripple that spread through space itself. The effect on the Void ships was immediate. They shuddered, their coordinated movements becoming erratic. Some smaller vessels simply collapsed in on themselves. For a brief moment, victory seemed possible. Then the main Void vessel released a pulse of dark energy that engulfed 3 human ships, including Stone's. The Severance effect faded, and the Void forces regrouped. They adapted, realized Krev, watching from his command ship. They found a countermeasure. The battle ended in retreat for the Allied forces. Arcturus fell, though enough ships escaped to preserve a significant portion of the fleet. The loss of Commander Stone and the prototype Severance weapons was a devastating blow to human and Council morale. In the aftermath, the human High Command called an emergency meeting with Council leadership. Admiral West, the overall commander of human forces, addressed the gathered representatives. "The Arcturus battle confirmed what we feared," said West. "The Void is learning from each encounter, adapting to our tactics and technology. The Severance weapon works, but we need to deliver it directly to their command node to affect the entire hive mind." "How do we find this command node?" asked Vex. "We believe it's located in what used to be the Cygnus sector," replied West. "Our long-range scouts report massive Void activity there, centered around what was once the planet Theris." The name sent murmurs through the Council representatives. Theris had been a world of special significance, a planet where ancient ruins predating all known civilizations had been discovered. The ruins contained warnings about the darkness between stars in dozens of extinct languages. "The humans were right," said Councillor Dax, looking around the chamber. "They found the same warnings on Earth and other worlds. They tried to tell us and we ignored them." Admiral West nodded. "We need to launch a major offensive against Cygnus, not to win back territory, but to create an opening for a strike team to reach Theris with an improved Severance device. It's a suicide mission, but it's our only chance to cripple the Void." The Council agreed to the plan. Every remaining warship would be committed to the assault, creating a diversion while a small, fast unit with the most advanced human technology would attempt to reach Theris. As preparations began, Professor Reed made a breakthrough in her research. She requested an urgent meeting with both Council and human leadership. "I've been analyzing the Void communication patterns," she explained. "There's something strange about how they interact with human ships compared to Council vessels." She displayed data showing energy emissions from Void entities during battles. "They're actively trying to connect with Council technology, but they avoid the same connection with human systems. It's as if they recognize Council tech as compatible but see human technology as what?" prompted Vex. "As an infection," said Reed. "Something that harmed them before." Admiral West exchanged glances with the other human leaders. "Professor Reed, I think it's time we shared the complete truth with the Council." In a secure chamber, with all recording devices disabled, the human leaders revealed what they had discovered decades ago, the reason they had left the Council and prepared for war. "Humanity encountered the Void before," explained Admiral West. "Not my generation, not even our ancient ancestors, but humans from an alternate timeline, a different version of Earth that was completely consumed by the Void." The Council representatives stared in disbelief as West continued. 50 years ago, we detected a temporal anomaly near Earth. A ship emerged, a human vessel, but with technology we didn't recognize. Its systems were failing, its crew mostly dead. But they carried a warning and data about an enemy they called the Void. In their timeline, the Void had consumed most of the galaxy, including Earth and all human co. The human battlecruiser, Intrepid, moved silently through the debris field that had once been the Void's forward fleet. Commander Stone stood on the bridge, watching as scout ships searched for survivors among the wreckage of both Allied and enemy vessels. "Status report," he ordered. his voice steady despite the exhaustion of 3 days of continuous battle. 47 ships reporting operational status. Commander, replied Lieutenant Merrick. Another 32 damaged but capable of limited function. Casualty reports still coming in. The Battle of Cygnus had been costly beyond imagination. Of the 500 ships that entered the conflict, barely a fifth remained combat-ready. But they had achieved what many thought impossible. They had broken through the Void's defenses, creating an opening for the strike team to reach Theris. Any word from Captain Aria's team? Asked Stone. Their last transmission came 8 hours ago, said Communications Officer Jenner. They had reached Theris orbit and were preparing to deploy the severance device. Then nothing. Stone studied the tactical display. The remaining Void forces had withdrawn to defensive positions around several key systems, including Theris. Their normally coordinated movements had become erratic, suggesting the strike team had at least partially succeeded. They did it, Stone said quietly. They disrupted the command node. The Void fleet is disorganized. The bridge crew allowed themselves a moment of hope. After months of retreat and defeat, they had finally struck a meaningful blow against the enemy that had consumed so many worlds. The moment was interrupted by an urgent signal from their long-range sensors. Commander, called the sensor operator. Massive energy surge detected from Theris. Something's happening. On the main screen, they watched as a shockwave of strange energy spread outward from the planet, rippling through space itself. When it reached the nearest Void vessels, they seemed to shudder, their dark energy structures fluctuating wildly. The severance device, breathed Stone. Full power to shields. We don't know how this will affect our systems. When the wave passed over the human fleet, the effect was minimal. A brief power fluctuation quickly stabilized. But the impact on the Void ships was devastating. The smaller vessels collapsed entirely, while the larger ones broke apart into disconnected fragments that drifted aimlessly. It worked, said Stone, allowing himself a smile. Send word to all Allied forces. The command node has been neutralized. The Void fleet is vulnerable. Throughout Council and human space, the news spread rapidly. The Void forces, once an unstoppable tide, had been reduced to isolated pockets without central coordination. For the first time since the war began, victory seemed possible. On the Council Capitol, Ambassador Zorn addressed the emergency session. The human-led assault has succeeded beyond our expectations. The severance device has disrupted the Void's hive mind, breaking their connection to the command node. Our forces are already moving to reclaim fallen territories. The chamber erupted in cheers, representatives from hundreds of species celebrating together. High Counselor Vex, who had opposed the humans for so long, now led the praise for their sacrifice and ingenuity. We must acknowledge, said Vex, that without human foresight and determination, our civilization would have fallen. They left us not in anger but to prepare for a war they knew was coming, a war they tried to warn us about. But the celebration was premature. As Allied forces began operations to liberate Void-controlled systems, they made a disturbing discovery. The planets that had been transformed by the Void were not returning to normal. The black structures remained, and worse, they were still active, still growing, though at a much slower rate. Tech specialist Aria, the only survivor of the strike team that deployed the severance device, was recovered from the ruins of their ship near Theris. She brought troubling news to the Allied command. We didn't destroy the command node, she explained, her voice weak from injury. We only severed its connection to the fleet. The Void entity on Theris is still alive, still conscious, and it's trying to rebuild the network. In a secure facility on the human fortress world Nova Prime, Arya met with Commander Stone and the Council's representative, Ambassador Zorn. They reviewed the data recovered from Theris. The Void isn't just a hive mind, said Arya. It's a multidimensional entity that exists partially outside our reality. The ships, the structures on the planets, they're just physical anchors for its true form. Then we haven't won the war, said Stone grimly. No, agreed Arya. We've won a battle. Maybe gained some time. But the Void is adapting, finding new ways to connect its fragments. We need to strike again with a more powerful version of the severance device, targeting not just the command node, but every major Void structure simultaneously. Is that even possible? Asked Zorn. In theory, said Arya. But we would need access to every transformed world, and we would need to coordinate the attack perfectly. One mistake, one failure, and the Void could adapt and become immune to the severance effect. The task seemed impossible. Hundreds of worlds had been transformed by the Void, many deep in territory still controlled by isolated Void fragments. Reaching all of them would require resources beyond what the battered Allied forces could muster. It was Ambassador Zorn who proposed the solution. What if we didn't need to reach the planets physically? The Council has been developing a network of quantum communication relays. If we could adapt them to carry the severance effect, the idea sparked a new cooperative effort between human and Council scientists. Using the quantum relay technology and human expertise with the severance device, they began developing a system that could simultaneously target every Void structure in the galaxy. Meanwhile, the war continued. Allied forces reclaimed system after system, finding each transformed world in the same state, covered with black structures, the population gone, absorbed into the Void consciousness. Some worlds could be partially restored by destroying the Void structures, but the process was slow and dangerous as each structure fought to preserve itself. On the front lines, Commander Stone led a fleet to reclaim the strategically important Arcturus system. The battle was fierce but winnable now that the Void ships lacked central coordination. After securing the system, Stone's forces established a forward base to support further operations. During the cleanup operation, a scout ship made a startling discovery on one of Arcturus's moons. Hidden beneath the surface was a facility unlike any they had seen before. Not a Void structure, but something built with a strange mix of human and alien technology. It predates the war, reported the scout team leader. Based on the degradation of materials, it's been here for at least 40 years. Stone led a team to investigate personally. What they found shocked him. A hidden base containing research materials, weapon prototypes, and data storage devices, all bearing the insignia of a human organization that officially didn't exist. Temporal defense. Initiative, this is from the other timeline, realized Stone. The humans who came back to warn us, they built this before they made contact with our Earth. Among the recovered materials was a data crystal containing detailed information about the Void, far more than the Allied forces currently possessed. Most critically, it included complete schematics for an enhanced version of the severance device, one designed to permanently disable Void structures by targeting their multi-dimensional anchors. When Stone reported the discovery to Human High Command, the response was immediate. Admiral Pierce, Supreme Commander of Human Forces, ordered the Arcturus facility secured with the highest level of protection. The data was to be transmitted to the research team working on the quantum relay system. On Nova Prime, Arya received the new information with growing excitement. This changes everything, she told her team. The enhanced severance design targets the Void's dimensional anchors directly. Combined with the quantum relay, we could hit every Void structure simultaneously, cutting them off from their extra-dimensional source. The construction of the enhanced severance device and modification of the quantum relay network became the highest priority for the Allied forces. Every available scientist, engineer, and technician was assigned to the project. Council worlds contributed rare materials, human factories worked around the clock, and even species that had previously remained neutral offered assistance. As work progressed, Admiral Pierce visited the reclaimed worlds on the edge of former Void territory. What he found troubled him deeply. The Void structures, though inactive, were changing subtly, adapting even without direction from the command node. They're learning, Pierce told the Allied Leadership Council. Even disconnected from the hive mind, each fragment retains some level of awareness. Given enough time, they might establish a new network, a new command structure. How long do we have? Asked High Chancellor Rax, who had replaced Vex as the Council's leader. Weeks, maybe months, replied Pierce. Not years. We need to deploy the enhanced severance as soon as it's ready, even if it's not fully tested. The decision was made to launch what would hopefully be the final operation against the Void. The plan called for simultaneously activating the enhanced severance effect through the quantum relay network, targeting every known Void structure across the galaxy. To ensure success, key relay stations would be Fleet Admiral Pierce stood on the observation deck of the Guardian, the largest warship ever constructed by human hands. Below, the rebuilt Council capital world gleamed in the light of its twin suns. 5 years had passed since the Void War ended. 5 years of rebuilding, recovery, and a new era of cooperation between once divided species. "Impressive view, isn't it?" said High Chancellor Rax, joining Pierce at the viewport. The insectoid leader of the Galactic Council had become a close ally during the reconstruction efforts. "It's remarkable what can be accomplished when we work together," replied Pierce. The capital was almost completely destroyed. "Now look at it." The city below represented the new philosophy that guided the post-war galaxy, a blend of council elegance and human practicality, with architectural elements from dozens of species creating a harmonious whole. At its center stood the Monument of Remembrance, a towering structure listing the names of every world lost to the void. Pierce and Rax were not on the Guardian for sightseeing, however. They had gathered with military and scientific leaders from across the Alliance for an urgent meeting. In a secure conference room deep within the ship, the disturbing news was presented. "The dimensional sensors are picking up activity again," reported Dr. Arya, now head of the Void Research Division. The monitor behind her displayed readings from the network of sensors established throughout the galaxy after the war. "The patterns are similar to what we detected before the Void incursion, but with significant differences." "Is it the Void returning?" asked Rax, mandibles clicking with concern. "No," said Arya. "The energy signature is distinct, similar dimensional origin, but a different entity entirely. And it's not trying to hide its approach. In fact, it seems to be sending a signal." She activated another display showing a repeating pattern of energy pulses. "We've been receiving this for the past 3 days. It's not random, it shows clear signs of intelligent design." "Have you decoded it?" asked Pierce. "Partially," replied Arya. "It's using mathematical sequences as a foundation, but the full message is complex. What we've deciphered so far appears to be a warning." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. After everything they had endured, the thought of facing another extra-dimensional threat was almost unbearable. But the galaxy was different now, united, prepared, vigilant. "Where is this signal originating from?" asked Rax. "That's the strangest part," said Arya. "It's coming from the Perseus Void, the region of space where the consciousness is released from the void. Structures gathered after the war. The Perseus Void had been a subject of intense study since the end of the conflict. The billions of lights that had emerged from the dissolving void structures had traveled there, forming what some scientists described as a consciousness nebula, a cloud of non-corporeal intelligences existing in a state between physical reality and the dimensional spaces and beyond. "Are you suggesting," said Pierce slowly, "that the absorbed consciousnesses are warning us about a new threat?" "It's a possibility," admitted Arya. "They exist partly in our reality and partly outside it. They might be able to perceive things we can't." The Alliance leadership debated their response. Some argued for immediate military preparation, while others cautioned against overreaction. In the end, they decided on a dual approach, strengthening defenses while sending an expedition to the edge of the Perseus Void to establish direct communication with the consciousness nebula. The expedition would be led by the Explorer, a new vessel specifically designed for dimensional boundary research. Its crew included specialists from both human and council worlds, with Commander Faye, a veteran of the Void War, in command. As the Explorer prepared for departure, final briefings were held aboard the Guardian. Admiral Pierce addressed the mission team personally. "You're embarking on perhaps the most important expedition in our history," he told them. "What you discover could determine the future of our civilization. Trust each other, stay vigilant, and remember that you carry the hopes of every world in the Alliance." The journey to the Perseus Void took 2 weeks, even with the advanced drive systems developed since the war. As they approached the boundary, the crew of the Explorer witnessed a spectacular sight. A vast cloud of swirling lights spanning several light years, each point representing a consciousness freed from the void. "It's beautiful," said Science Officer Trax, his 4 eyes wide with wonder. "Trillions of minds existing together in harmony." Commander Faye was more cautious. "Let's not forget that many of those minds were absorbed by the void against their will. We don't know if what they've become is truly benevolent." The Explorer established position at the edge of the nebula and began broadcasting a response to the signal they had been receiving. They used the same mathematical foundation, but added linguistic elements from major galactic languages, hoping to establish meaningful communication. For 3 days, they waited for a response, continuing to broadcast and refine their message. Then, without warning, the nebula began to change. The swirling pattern of lights shifted, forming a massive structure that resembled a face not of any specific species, but a blend of features that somehow seemed familiar to every member of the crew. "We are what remains," came a voice over the ship's communication system, speaking in perfect galactic standard. "We remember what was taken from us. We see what comes from the darkness." Commander Fay stepped forward. "I am Commander Fay of the Alliance vessel Explorer. We received your warning and have come to understand." "The void was only one of many," replied the entity. "There are others who hunger for consciousness, who seek to consume what they cannot create. Another approaches not the void but the formless." The nebula shifted again, forming images that depicted another dimension, a realm of pure chaos where structures constantly formed and collapsed, never achieving stability. From this dimension, something was reaching toward the galactic plane, not the darkness of the void, but a shimmering, ever-changing mass that devoured reality itself. "The formless breaks boundaries between dimensions," continued the entity. "It does not absorb consciousness like the void, but erases it completely, reducing ordered reality to primal chaos. Your galaxy will be its first target in this realm." "Why are you warning us?" asked Fay. "Why help the descendants of those who failed to stop your absorption?" The nebula pulsed, the light swirling faster. "Because we remember being you. Because despite our transformation, we still value conscious existence. Because the formless is a threat to all who think, whether physical or energy, whether of this dimension or another." "How do we stop it?" asked Trax. "You cannot with your current understanding," said the entity. "But we can help. We exist in both realms now, the physical and the beyond. We can show you how to create a barrier, a dimensional lock that will prevent the formless from fully entering your reality." The entity transmitted technical data, complex equations and engineering specifications for a device that could stabilize the boundaries between dimensions. The design was far beyond current Alliance technology, incorporating principles that even the most advanced scientists had barely begun to theorize about. "This will require resources beyond any single world's capability," said Trax after reviewing the specifications, "and knowledge we don't yet possess." "Then we will teach you," said the entity. "Some of us were scientists, engineers, thinkers from your worlds before we were taken. Those memories, that knowledge still exists within us." Commander Fay made her decision. "We accept your help, but the Alliance leadership will need to approve this cooperation." "Time is limited," warned the entity. "The formless approaches. Already its influence touches the edge of your galaxy, causing dimensional instabilities. You have perhaps 1 standard year before the barriers weaken enough for it to enter fully." The Explorer returned to Alliance space with its stunning report. Emergency sessions were held with leaders from all major worlds. The data from the Consciousness Nebula was analyzed, debated, and finally accepted as authentic. High Chancellor Rax addressed the historic joint session of the Council and Human Assembly. "We face a threat that once again challenges our understanding of reality itself. But unlike before, we do not face it unprepared or divided. And this time, we have allies from beyond our physical realm. The Alliance mobilized on a scale even greater than during the Void War. Every world contributed resources to what became known as the Barrier Project. Massive construction facilities were established at key points throughout the galaxy, each building components for the dimensional stabilizers that would form the lock against the formless. The Consciousness Nebula provided crucial guidance, with the entity sending representatives, small clusters of lights that could exist briefly in physical space, to work directly with Alliance scientists. The collaboration was unprecedented, physical beings and energy consciousnesses working together, bridging the gap between different states of existence. As work progressed, the effects of the approaching formless became increasingly apparent. Spatial anomalies appeared in distant systems. Strange weather patterns affected worlds near the galactic rim. Most disturbing were the blank zones, areas where reality itself seemed to simplify, complex structures breaking down into more basic forms.